Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Please stand for the presentation of the colors. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the Star-Spangled Banner, performed by the Ben Steele Swing Choir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. You may be seated. Once again, good morning, students, staff, parents, honored veterans, and active duty service members. My name is Joe Halligan, and I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran and the blessed principal of this great middle school. This morning is a combined celebration of the dedication and sacrifice of the many veterans and active duty service men and women who served and continue to serve this great country's armed forces, and the birthday of our namesake, local hero, artist, veteran, former World War II prisoner of war, Ben Steele. Special welcome to Mrs. Shirley Steele, Miss Julie Jorgensen, Mr. Jim Jorgensen, retired U.S. Navy Lieutenant Commander Jim Forsyth, and our keynote speaker, Captain Chuck Hader, United States Marine Corps. Please also help me in recognizing our own Ben Steele staff members and veterans. Please stand when I call your name. Sergeant Clint Mainwaring, U.S. Army. Specialist Danny Dukas, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Donnie Ludwig, United States Army. Corporal Joe Siebert, United States Marine Corps. And Sergeant Patrick Kenny, United States Marine Corps. As we begin today's service and ceremony, it's customary we begin by honoring our nation's flag. I would like to continue that celebration by introducing Lieutenant Commander Jim Forsyth, who will continue our ceremony by sharing the importance of our nation's colors. Old Glory. Lieutenant Commander.
Thank you, Mr. Halligan. I thought I'd give you a little background on my service to the country. In January of 1985, I enlisted in the United States Navy, went to boot camp in San Diego, which is now kind of a resort area where we had boot camp. I went to fire controlman A school, and no, I did not put out fires. Fire control in the Navy is you control weapons. So I worked on the close-in weapon system. You can look that up. It's a little Gatling gun with an enclosed radar. Shot 3,000 rounds a minute. It's kind of fun when we got to shoot it. I did 2 deployments in 1987 and 1989 to the Persian Gulf. It is that hot there. I can testify and justify anybody else that says it's hot. It's kind of miserable, but it is what it is. I got out of the Navy off active duty in 91 and enrolled. I went up to Montana State University, got a civil engineering degree. I was commissioned into the Civil Engineer Corps in 1998. I was an OIC of a detachment for CVs. Does anybody know what CVs are? No. Anybody up here know what a CV is? Well, guess what? You got a homework assignment. Look up what CVs are. Mr. Halligan will help you. Their motto is, we build, we fight. I'll give you a hint. So, as an officer, one of the things that I was honored to do was to administer the oath of enlistment. And every service member, that is our one commonality, besides the member served. That's what we do. Is I do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And it goes on from there. That is the one key, it never expires. Ask any veteran, that oath does not expire. We raise our hand, and it means something. So I would encourage all of you, if you haven't read the Constitution, it's not boring. It is the rule of the United States. It's the rule of law. Very important. So when you're in class and they talk about it, you should pay attention, because if you don't know what your rights are, it's pretty easy to take them away from you. Okay? So when we look at this flag, it stands for that Constitution. We stand in front of it when we take that oath, and when someone makes a supreme sacrifice, that flag drapes their coffin. I administered the oath to one young man. He didn't have to go. His name is Chuck Conklin. And if you don't know, the Reserve Center out here on the West End is named after him. And when that happened, I knew his wife, I knew his son, his daughter, his mom. They still come to the Navy Ball. It's intense, and it means something. He went over there with that, and he was one of those guys that served. He served his fellow Seabees. He served his country. He served his community. It was serving. So that, to a veteran, anytime you look at him and you meet him and you say, thanks for your service, that's what thanks for your service means, is serving that much. Then, so the flag stands for all that to me. And at every retirement ceremony that we have in the Navy, we read what's called Old Glory. And I'd like you to listen and hear where this flag has been and what it stood for. I think this summarizes it pretty well. I'm the flag of the United States of America. My name is Old Glory. I fly atop the world's tallest buildings. I stand watch in America's halls of justice. I fly majestically over great institutions of learning. I stand guard with the greatest military power in the world. Look up and see me. I stand for peace, honor, truth, and justice. I stand for freedom. I am confident, I am arrogant, I am proud. When I am flown with my fellow banners, my head is a little higher, my colors a little truer. I bow to no one. I am recognized all over the world. I am worshipped, I am saluted, I am respected, I am revered, I am loved, and I am feared. I have fought in every battle of every war for more than 200 years. Gettysburg, Shiloh, Appomattox, San Juan Hill, the trenches of France, the Argonne Forest, Anzio, Rome, the beaches of Normandy, the island of Guam, Okinawa, Japan, Korea, Vietnam, the Persian Gulf, and scored places long forgotten by all but those who were there with me. I was there. I led my soldiers. I followed them. I watched over them. They loved me. I was on a small hill in Iwo Jima. I was dirty, battle-worn, and tired. But my soldiers cheered me, and I was proud. I had been soiled, burned, torn, and trampled on the streets of my own country. And when it is by those with whom I have served in battle, it hurts. But I shall overcome, for I am strong. I have slipped the bonds of earth, and from the vantage point on the moon, I stand watch over the uncharted frontiers of space. I have been a silent witness to all of America's finest hours. But my finest hour comes when I am torn into strips to be used as bandages for my wounded comrades on the field of battle. When I fly half-mast to honor my soldiers. When I lie in the trembling arms of a grieving mother at the graveside of her fallen son or daughter, I am proud. My name is Old Glory. Long may I wave, dear God, long may I wave. That's what we read, and as we're reading that, a flag is brought up to the retiring servicemen, our shipmate that we're sending off. And they're presenting that flag, and they fly over a various command of their choosing. That is their retirement flag. It means a tremendous amount to any service member to get to receive a flag like that. I want to thank you all for your attention. Ben Steele Middle School, thank you so much for your attention. It means a lot. Have a good day.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lieutenant Colonel, we have to applause, please. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm again a math teacher here at Ben Steele. I'm here to introduce Mr. Chuck Hayden. Chuck was born in Billings, Montana, and graduated from Billings Central Catholic High School and Carroll College. He joined the United States Marine Corps in 1999 and served as a radio operator at Bravo Company, 4th Recon Battalion. After 9/11, Chuck accepted a commission in the Marines. In 2004, he made his way into his first deployment to Afghanistan as a platoon commander. Chuck made his next deployment in Iraq in 2005, again as a platoon commander. In 2009, he deployed to Afghanistan, again this time as a staff officer, coordinating the training and integration of the Afghanistan security forces. In 2010, Chuck deployed to Afghanistan the final time, this time as a company commander. Chuck medically retired from the Marines in 2014 after 4 deployments and 15 years of service. Chuck's family stayed with him for 15 years of service. Charlie and Taylor were raised on military bases and grew up watching men and women deploy all over the world. Chuck now works at the VA, helping our veterans and devoting time to raising his kids and passing on the values learned in the service of our country. Please help me welcome Captain Chuck Hayden, U.S.
And so we're here to thank all the veterans. So thank you so much. Thank you for everybody who served. I mean, this is wonderful that you guys all come together and do this for all of our veterans. So thank you very much. So I was kind of doing some research, and I know we got Mr. Steele here. So I kind of looked at, I guess when I was thinking about what I was going to say, I think most of us that served, we didn't serve for ourselves. We served for future generations. We served for our kids. We served for our families. We served for our country. None of us went into the military and say, hey, we're going to get rich off of this, or they're going to make a movie about me, or something like that. We went into the service so that we could serve. And there's a million different ways to do that. For every one infantryman out there, and that's what, when you guys watch all the war movies, it's usually the infantry guys up there pulling the trigger. For every one of those guys, there's 22 people in support that make it possible for that person to do that. And so it doesn't matter what the job is, where they serve, whether they deploy or don't deploy. If they put on a uniform and they're supporting our country, hats off to them. They're doing great work. So thank you, everybody. So looking at what I wanted to say here, I think our history molds us. So for the veterans, what we did overseas, that molds the way that we raise our children and our grandchildren. It molds our country, it molds our society, and nothing could be seen, nothing is a better example than this school right here. So Ben Steele was a great man, but let's look at what he did and why we look at him as the war hero that he was. Okay? You got to look at the Japanese when they invaded the Philippines. And the U.S. Army was over there, and they fought with Filipino Americans, and they defended as long as they could. So you got to think of these guys. So I want you to kind of imagine, think of these guys that are out there fighting. They're fighting for weeks and weeks, not sleeping, not getting a lot of food, constantly moving, constantly engaged. And at the end, they have to surrender because they're surrounded. There's nothing else to do. 60 to 80,000 service members surrendered and participated in the Bataan Death March. So after all that fighting, they still had to march 60 to 70 miles to get to the prison camp. During that march, and they estimate, again, we didn't keep great records back then, 5,000 to 18,000 Filipino Americans died, and 500 to 650 American soldiers died. Now, that wasn't the end of it. Just that 60-mile march, it didn't stop there, because then they had to go to a POW camp, and inside that POW camp, over 20,000 service members died in there. So you're looking at almost 50% of those service members that surrendered ended up dying during that period of time. So think about how amazing it is that one of those survivors who went through that horrible, horrible time is here in Billings, and we get the honor of having a school named after that. Now, to kind of change the subject a little bit, because I'm a happy-go-lucky guy, so now time for some more funnier stories. During the Bataan Death March, the U.S. military trained to hike about 18 miles a day. The Japanese Army was trained to hike 22 miles a day, roughly. What that did is for the U.S., we decided we needed to be able to walk further on less food, less water. And so they came up with this idea that the U.S. military needs to be able to walk 25 miles. So, as Joe and I were training, we had to do a 25-mile crest hike. You guys ever walk 25 miles? It's a test of endurance. It is hard. So I remember we did our 25-mile hike, and at the end of it, we're all sitting in the squad bay, and the guy across the way from me, he pulls off his boots, and he had walked the soles off his feet. So when he got up to go get some water, there was nothing but bloody footprints all the way back. And so you look at that, and you think about that, and you think about how dedicated these young men are. That kid was no more than 19 years old. And so that's, for some of you, that's in 5 years. And just that dedication, that desire to not give up, to serve his country, because nobody's going to write a book about him or anything like that. He just wanted to be there. He wanted to do his part and do the best he could. And that's across the board. Every branch of service, everybody who joins the military puts on a uniform, just wants to do the best they can for their country. So, looking at another funny story. The helicopter. So your principal and I served together. And so we went to Norway. And you guys know Norway, it's cold up there, right? When we were up there, there was about, I don't know, I guess about 8 feet of snow. It was cold. And we had to ride on a helicopter and get out to where they're going to drop us off. And when the helicopter landed, and it lands right on top of the snow, and it's time for all of us to get out. There's 6 of us in the back of the helicopter and all our gear and everything to make it for about, but we ended up being out there for 6 days. Okay. It was long and it was cold. So we had all our gear to last out there for at least a week. So the helicopter lands. Were you on the first group to jump out? Yeah. So the first two guys jump out of the helicopter. I was lucky, I got to be the last guy out of the helicopter. So the first two guys jump out of the helicopter, they jump feet first. What happens when you jump feet first into 8 feet of powder? So, I know we're sitting in there, the four of us that are left in there are looking at them like, what the heck just happened? They just disappeared, they're gone. So, being smart Marines like we were, the next two guys, they jump out of the helicopter. And again, feet first. So now we're down four of 6 of us. We got all the gear in the helicopter. I know it's me and Corporal Seals are left in there. And the rest of our team just disappeared. No idea where they went. It's about 1 o'clock in the morning, so it's dark. And so we look at each other like, well, we can't get out of here unless we get all the gear out. So we start grabbing gear and throwing gear out of the helicopter. And as we're throwing gear out, we start to see hands and arms and slowly a head. And they start to claw their way out from underneath the snow. And so it was a pretty eye-opening experience to realize what it's like to jump out of a helicopter into 8 feet of snow. So, but little stories like that, I mean, they're all over the place in the military, and it's fun. The military is a good place to be. Everybody, there's a lot of camaraderie. Everybody wants to do the same thing, wants to give it their best for no recognition, but just for the fact that they serve their country. Some of you guys know this, that I'm missing a leg. I lost a leg over in Afghanistan on my first deployment. And so coaching football, I always wore shorts, and so you guys saw me walking around with my bionic leg. So I got a funny story about that. When we were over in Iraq, we had we're engaged with the enemy, and we had to cross the street. So there's bullets flying all over the place, and we got two Marine battalions online, so about 2,000 guys, and they're clearing through a city, and we're up against another couple thousand bad guys. And so this one street, there's bullets flying everywhere. And so I'm in charge, and so I got one of my sergeants next to me. I'm like, okay, Sergeant, you gotta go first. And he takes off running, and there's bullets zipping past him, and he almost gets hit, and he gets to the end, and he dives, and he rolls, and looks back up, he's like, ooh, I made it. And so then it comes to be my turn. I always went second. So I take off running. I get about halfway across the street, and I catch my prosthetic leg. I went back after I lost my leg, so I catch my leg on a rock. And when you're wearing a prosthetic and you catch your toe on a rock, it pulls your leg off. So of course, what I do, I roll, I tumble, I fall down, and all of a sudden, all the shooting stops. Everybody quit shooting. They thought they got me. Well, I'm laying on the ground there, and all the shooting stopped, and I'm like, okay, now what do I do next? So, kind of thought about it a little bit, and I'm like, well, I need to get my leg on. That's the first thing I need to do. So, dummy it down, make it simple, go step by step. So I sit up, then I stand up, and then I hop over on one leg back to where my prosthetic was, grab that, put it on, and then slowly walk the rest of the way across the street. We didn't get shot. We did not get shot at one more time for the entire operation. I don't know what those guys were thinking. They thought they got me, and then I got up and put my leg back on, and they're like, holy cow. So I was like, what a benefit, My guys were good for another 10 days. But it is truly amazing. And I got the privilege of being a commander, and I got to watch 18 and 19 and 20-year-old kids who their counterparts are in college doing all kinds of college stuff. And these 18 and 19 and 20-year-old kids have an anti-tank rocket strapped to their back, 10 pounds of C4 in their butt pack, and 350 rounds of ammo on their chest, and are going out and doing phenomenal things. That's a lot of responsibility. And every single one of them stood up to that. And the proudest moment I had as a commander is when we were walking in Afghanistan, and it was about 115 degrees out. And we had all our body armor on, and every one of us was just sweating up a storm. And a little, probably 6-year-old girl comes up to our patrol, and she's asking for water. And I'm looking behind me to watch what the Marine does behind me. And he looks at the little girl, and you can kind of see his eyes kind of, a little sympathy in there. And he reaches down into his pocket, and he had one bottle of water left. And he looks at that bottle of water, and he looks at that little girl, and he looks back at that bottle of water, and he goes back and forth like 3 or 4 times. And finally he says, you know what? She needs it more than me. He hands her that bottle of water. And that's probably that first clean drink of water that girl's ever had. So really, really, really amazed at just the love that our military men and women have and what they give and what they get to share around our country. So again, thank you, all of you. Thank you for listening, and thank you for this privilege.
Thanks, Joe, for that awesome message. Appreciate it. I have the privilege of asking Mr. Roberts to share with us all of the branches songs. And so as the band plays that, if you would please stand for your appropriate branch. U.S. Marine Corps. Thank you all for all your service. I have the privilege right now to introduce to you a very special member of our Steele community. He told me I'm not supposed to say a lot, so I'll be brief, but we appreciate everything that Nate Reaver has done to us. done for us. He's a, sorry, that's bad. Sorry, Mr. Halligan, you can't put me with the microphone. He is a veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps, and if you would please help me in welcoming Sergeant Nate Reaver as he explains the American Roundtable.
Hello. I have to use the thing to hold it. Or maybe not. Good morning. Will it? To be smarter than the right stand. Qualified. All right. Try that. Here. 10 minutes later. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. Thanks to Mr. Halligan for inviting me to be here today. I share a lot. One thing I know that I share with every veteran is that if you ask us to do something that's not service related, we're hesitant to do that. We never feel like we're the right person to do it. We always feel that somebody is serving. I certainly feel that way, so objection noted. But I am honored to be here. And I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to my father, who had the privilege of doing this last year. I couldn't be with us today. He was Sergeant Reaver as well. So I'm honored to be here. And just very quickly before I read what is referred to as America's Round Table, I want to just mention the importance of remembering. You've been given many examples. You have examples from your own life. It's not something that we always do, and it's often something we don't do enough of, is stop for a moment and remember. I remember growing up, being about your age, and we would go to functions, and at times a moment of silence would be called for. And this was a bizarre thing. And everyone would stand, and someone would place a hand over their hearts and remove their hats. So they all had kind of their own unique way, but they all stood and they were all silent. And as a child, it's bewildering. Because usually, and I grew up in central Montana, that's when we see each other, we're talking. We might not see each other for a while. So we're always chatting, and then a moment of silence, and everybody is just quiet. It's a little awkward, but I started to take it as kind of a unifying bit. Didn't matter where you came from, whether you drove the fanciest pickup there, or whether you walked there, what your history was, your connection. Everybody was the same in that moment. Instead of being awkward and not knowing what to do, I realized I did know what to do. I was doing what everybody else was doing. And reflecting for a moment, each in our own way, and sharing that moment of silence. We heard earlier how our flag has been a silent witness to many years. And as we remember people who are no longer here, the prisoners of war, as Mr. Steele once was, and those who are missing in action tonight, cannot be here. We remember them as well in that moment. And we match their silence. And in that moment of silence, we welcome their spirit and their memory. So think of it as something that ties you all together. Think of it as an opportunity to come together and share something. We may not share anything else. We can certainly share our respect and our remembrance of those who have served this country so bravely. So keep that in mind. I'm going to read again. This is America's Roundtable, and it's specifically in remembrance of those who cannot be here, prisoners of war, and still the missing in action, the members of our armed forces. And at the end of that, I'm going to ask if you are able to rise from a moment of silence. I'd ask that you listen quietly now. This table honors the men and women who serve in America's armed forces. The table is round to show our everlasting devotion and concern for our falling and missing comrades. The cloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their motives when answering the call of duty. The single red rose, displayed in a vase reminds us of the life and the blood that was shed, and their loved ones and friends who keep the faith and await answers. The vase is tied with a red ribbon, a symbol of our commitment and continued determination to account for the missing. A slice of lemon on a plate is to remind us of the bitter fate of those captured and missing in a foreign land. The salt is to remind us of the tears endured by those missing and their families who still seek answers. The black napkin is a reminder of the isolation, deprivation, and cruel fate of our missing. The glass is inverted to symbolize their inability to share the evening with us. The chair is empty. They are not here and will remain so until they return or are accounted for. You are not forgotten so long as there is one left in whom your memory remains. And if you are able, please stand and join me in a moment of silence. Thank you very much. You may be seated. It is now my pleasure to pass the mic, so to speak, and introduce one of our very own here at Ben Steele, talented young man, 8th grader, who will be playing taps, Mr. Joey Kazmierski.
Thank you, Joey, for being willing to play that. That is one of the melodies that I think is very important for anyone who has served in the armed forces. When you are in training and you are closing down for the evening, particularly in boot camp and really everywhere on a base, that song is played, again, as a remembrance of everyone who has gone before us in the armed forces. So as we're going to bed each night after a day of training or classroom time or whatever it is we might have done that day, taps is played, flag is usually lowered, and then we rest for the evening. And so thank you, Joy, for being willing to do that. That is not an easy song to play. We really appreciate it. At this time, I have the opportunity to introduce a couple of very important people. We're going to, did you take my page, my introduction? Since the beginning of this great journey, Shirley Steele, Julie, and Jim Jorgensen have been out front leading the way in an effort to make Ben Steele Middle School a reality. It's been a tremendous honor for all of us to get to know them, and they truly have become a part of the family. Our school has been blessed to have Ben's family present at almost every event we have hosted, and our students have had the privilege of listening to Shirley and Julie at different times throughout the last year and a half, just to hear some of the great things that Mr. Steele did and what he stood for and what he was all about. We're going to continue to invite them to be a part of all that we do for as long as everyone is physically able. We welcome them again today, and as always, please welcome Mrs. Shirley Steele and Mrs. Julie Jorgensen.
I'm going to talk to the kids. It's an honor to be here every time I come. And they're Ben's kids, and they're my kids. And I have something to say to them. When Ben was growing up in the Bull Mountains, he went to a small log school. His house was small, it was log. They didn't have very many books. Not in the house, not in the school. A few magazines, he said. He was learning from the land. He really wasn't that interested in school. It's early days. But you have a library, a school library. I didn't have a school library. We used the town library. Why do you go to the library? And why is it important? Well, you go for school. But you go because that's where the words are. They pop out of the books. And Ben didn't have that until later. But words are so important. Words are powerful. Words can split a family, end a friendship, divide a country, start a war. Good words, proper words, the right words can end a war, can bring reason, sanity, unity. We need words. So why is it so important to read? Because you learn the words by how they're used in the story. Ben ran into some pretty bad words under the Japanese. He didn't understand them at first, but he soon learned what they meant. And it wasn't good, and it was hurtful, and they better not ignore them. If you try to escape, you won't make it. If one person escapes, 10 more will die. They made very sure nobody escaped of their own people. So think about words. Build up a good vocabulary, a lot of words. Your teachers have probably told you this anyway. It counts. You'll need those words. There used to be a saying that sticks and stones will break your bones. Words will never hurt you. That's a lie. Words could hurt a lot more. And there's one more thing. When you're speaking, you decide to speak and there's a situation, stop and think. Is it necessary that I speak? Is it helpful? Is it kind? It's so good to be here with you. Thanks for having me.
So my name is Julie Jorgensen, and I have to read mine because I'm not as good as Shirley. I'm the proud daughter of Ben Steele. I just want to take a minute and tell you a little bit about him. His appreciation for life was evident the minute you met him. He always had a big smile for you. He had a way of connecting with complete strangers and making them feel special, when in fact he was the special one. I truly feel he impacted everyone he met. He always said being a POW enhanced his life. He felt very strongly about that statement. He loved life and everyone in it. Ben Steele was the most patriotic man I ever met. The flag was very important to him. I fly the flag every day at my house just in his honor. If he were here today, he would say, be kind to one another and respect the flag. I love this school so much. I can feel his presence when I'm here. Thank you for celebrating his birthday and his amazing life. I feel Ben Steele is watching over all of you today with a smile on his face. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Shirley and Julie. We really appreciate your words. Thank you, Jim, for making it a priority to be down here. We know you have a lot of work going on at your ranch, and so taking time out of that is a big deal to us, and we appreciate it. Students of Ben Steele, I hope that you appreciate the gravity of the words of both Julie and Shirley Steele. It will probably be many years from now where you look back on your middle school career and you realize just how incredible it was to not only be at this school, but also to have the family members of the man responsible for our namesake. That's a very unique thing. I don't think too many students at Lewis and Clark got to talk to Lewis and Clark's family. I don't think too many people at Will James got to talk to Will James' family. Some people didn't even know Will James was a real person. So we are extremely fortunate. And so yes, today is a celebration of our veterans, but also a celebration of Mr. Steele's 101st birthday, which is tomorrow. We will sing happy birthday at the conclusion of our ceremony today. We are getting close to wrapping up. I would like to just make one more mention of our veterans and honor them one more time. Because I have the microphone and I'm in charge of the program, I get to do this. Before I ask all of the veterans to stand up, I am going to call special attention to one particular veteran in our audience today, because without him and the lady sitting next to him, I wouldn't be here. And so I would like to recognize my dad, Dave Halligan. My mom, Sharon, sitting next to him. My dad served in the United States Marine Corps in the late 60s. He served in Vietnam. He was wounded in Vietnam and went to spend some time, probably more time in a hospital than he actually got to spend in country, but he can tell you that story. So Dad, if you would please remain standing. I'm going to invite every single veteran in our midst this morning to stand once again to be recognized along with my dad. Thank you very much. Students, staff, and family members who are in the crowd, you'll never, if you haven't served, you will never know how that feels, but you will also never know how awkward that feels. When any veteran receives any sort of recognition, as has been alluded to by some of our speakers this morning, nobody that I've ever met has ever enlisted into one of the branches of our armed forces simply for the reason of the recognition, the chance to wear a really cool uniform, the chance to collect toys at the mall for Toys for Tots, or to do anything like that that is kind of one of those recognition things. That's not why we do it. And so veterans, I appreciate your willingness to stand and be recognized. It's truly important for you to do that, and I'm so grateful for each one of you. Before we break this morning and head back to our normally scheduled routine for the day, students, I do want to thank you. I get up every single morning and have the privilege of coming to work alongside the best staff in Billings and the best students in Billings. I know that some of us may butt heads at times, but just like my own sons who are at West High, I tell them there's never anything they will ever do that will make me stop caring for them, loving them, and wanting to see them successful. So I thank each one of you for the efforts that you put in every single day. I guarantee that Ben Steele is proud of what this school has accomplished. I know that Shirley and Julie and Jim Jorgensen are proud of everything that you've accomplished, both in and out of the classroom. And I would just ask that you continue to put forth those efforts. Try to put this little moment in your brain and remember the reason why you are working towards success. All of the sacrifices that have been made by the many people in this classroom and in this gymnasium, as well as outside these doors, have worked hard for you. And so we would ask that you continue working hard for all of us and all of them. So before we break this morning, I would like us to sing happy birthday to Ben Steele. November 17th, tomorrow, is his 101st birthday. I am not a singer at all, so I'm going to start as best I can, but I would ask that you join me in singing happy birthday to Ben. Here we go. Happy birthday. All right, ladies and gentlemen on the floor, we are going to ask that our students dismiss from the stands. Please stay put. We don't want you to get run over, tackled, manhandled by any of our middle schoolers. Teachers, if you would, take charge of your students and carry out the plan of the day. Thanks, everyone.